I'm back on Thanksgiving weekend. The only thing you can't see because they're just off screen is both of our guts that are just protruding right now with all kinds of Canadian Thanksgiving goodness. And in Brandon's case, a lot of Thai food, apparently. Welcome back to the Screen Love Affair podcast. I'm Shea, joined by Brandon. We got 3 movies we're covering this week. And we're going to be a lot. I feel like just prepping anybody listening now, between basically now and I'd say like into the first 2 weeks of January, I feel like we'll have a shitload of movies that we are going to be talking about. We'll probably bunch a lot of them up together just because there's so many that will be coming out.
And that being said, not all movies are created equal. If this review has 3 movies in it, don't expect an hour each. Like, we're probably gonna harp on one more than the others, and some of them don't really even deserve the longest segments. So to get out of the gate, I am very thankful this Thanksgiving in Canada here for some good movies and the opportunity to talk about it. So I'm really excited to get into it, but format wise, very different this week.
Yeah, we're definitely not going to be doing 3-hour episodes. Like, if it's movies we really love, like we'll forego talking about things, or we really hate movies that inspire us to talk a lot. Basically, whatever end of the spectrum they fall on, we'll do. But
and I'm pretty inspired to talk about at least 2 or 3 of these movies. I'm not going to lie. Like, I would downright say my expectations are blown out of the water for at least 2 of these 3 movies today.
I'm wildly discouraged by that, but we're gonna get into that because. Well, I don't want to spoil it. Stay tuned for the thoughts, but yes.
That's the hook. Yeah.
That's
Make sure you watch all the way to the end of the episode so our engagement goes up.
It evidently seems like we have disagreement on the horizon, and those are always the fun episodes, at least to record, and I hope to listen to as well.
Yeah, nobody really cared about our Oboe review because we were both like, wow, wasn't Paul W.S. Anderson so great for an hour and a half? But yeah, like, join us in the arena here of the Screen Love Affair podcast this week, Tuesday morning, and watch us duke it out talking about I don't know, some charming movies, I guess, is a blanket
on
statement.
That note, let's
into it.
Kick off with Roofman. Well, seeing as you're I don't know, we never really talked in advance, so
I stopped letterboxing before the podcast for this reason. Like, I've stopped doing my letterbox reviews to go and
hide you.
No, it's okay. To be fair, there's a lot of movies this year where I've gone in either really low or really high, and then I'd letterbox it, and I would just sneak like a half star down after talking to Shea and Adrian on the podcast. So it's actually more for my fragile ego than it is the anonymity and fair processing of our little review yap sesh here every weekend. So let's get into Roofman.
Go ahead. Kick us off.
Go ahead. I'm raring. I'm right out of the gate here. I'm so hopped up on was it MSG or whatever in Chinese food, and my classic divorced family Thanksgiving. You get one really nice traditional meal usually on the Friday or Saturday, and then the rest of the week is just so much takeout. So anyways, enough about my childhood. All right, so to start off with Roofman, without spoiling anything that has nothing to do outside of the trailer, marketing material, and the real life story, this movie's based on a real life story, which I always love. However, I gotta say, this movie was made for me. I absolutely love loitering in public spaces. I've personally thought about running away from home and living in the backside of a bike rack at a Walmart, not a Toys R Us. But more importantly, I think I frequent a McDonald's the most of anybody we've ever discussed with in person. Like, Shea knows this. I will have all these Montreal options when I come to visit him in one of our most beautiful cities here in Canada, and I will always just go to the McDonald's to answer an email or 2 for like hours. I'm like, catch me at my office. It's the Saint Hubert McDonald's. So big McDonald's guy. So the fact that this is a guy that robs like 47 McDonald's or something was just
45 or something, I think it was.
Yeah, and that's a good little edit in the movie where it's like, how long do you think it takes you to get rich? Or how many McDonald's do you think you need to rob to get rich? It's like, it's 45. And then, they don't linger it too long, again, not spoiling it, but they think the structure and the pacing of this movie is pretty solid. General thoughts, I think I really like this. I think based on the poster alone, I was expecting this to have a lot of 21 Jump Street energy with a very YOLO swag 2010s Channing Tatum. Because he's, it's a big yellow poster. He's wearing a blue shirt with like, children's pants on, wearing a pool floaty with a teddy bear. It looks like he's having a crazy time. And he is, but there's so much surprising heart in this movie that I wasn't expecting, and I think the way the story plays out really got me. So, general thoughts: really, really enjoy this one. It's not as goofy as I think a lot of the trailers make it look. And the trailer isn't cast alone. Like, it's a pretty stacked cast, but like they show Peter Dinklage as like a dick manager, and it works. It's not as over the top as I think the poster and some of the marketing led me to believe. So the expectations I had going in were met and then exceeded. So that's my general thoughts on Roofman.
Well, I'm so glad you had a good time with this movie because I think I have a new benchmark for a 2.5. Because
Wow.
this made me feel bad for saying Nobody 2 was a 2.5 a little bit. They
No way.
both
I was about
live
to
in that
say,
ballpark, but this is like aggressively a 2.5 for
no
me.
way. I went in expecting Nobody to. I was going to say, like, oh, I'm going to go in. It's not going to be a great movie, but I'm just going to try to enjoy it and talk about it on the pod. But I left being like, that might have been one of my favorite movies of the year. Like, genuinely
Wow.
really enjoyed it.
Okay.
Yeah. It's top 10.
I
I don't know about top 5, but this is why I'm glad I waited to letterbox it.
Sure. Damn. Okay. Well, yeah, no, yeah, this movie did absolutely nothing for me.
Wow.
But it wasn't like, again, it wasn't criminally bad. Like, I didn't hate it. Like, I didn't even like aggressively dislike it. And I think a lot of that has to do with the cast. Like, frankly, I'm kind of blown away about just like the number of people that occupy semi even important roles. I do have to say the biggest con of the movie for me, spoiler free still, is a criminal underutilization of my boy Ben Mendelsohn. I
I
fucking
forgot
love
he was in
him
it. Yeah,
so
yeah.
much, and the fact that you forgot he was even in
I
it is
completely
like
forgot. He
a
showed up and I
sin
was
on
like,
this
oh,
movie. I was too. I was like, oh shit, like I love him. I absolutely love him. Like it's like I haven't watched it yet, but even season 2 of Andor I actually put on my list to watch because I know that he's at least in it. So I absolutely love him and he does absolutely nothing. But yeah, like at any beat, like never did any of the emotional beats land for me. Never did any of the comedy really hit for me either. There was a couple moments that like I smiled, but like I never once even really outwardly laughed at anything. And I knew nothing. The only marketing thing I had seen for this was I knew it was based on some true story, but I didn't know any of the details. And by the time I saw it, I totally forgot the setup. So like it was all blind to me. Like I had no idea. Um, and yeah, and the only thing I saw was when you sent me like, oh, the clip where they're like, oh, if your name's Jeff and you go to an Alamo Draft House opening night or whatever, they'll let you in to see the movie for free.
to
But
to hop in on that exact thing real quick, we always like to talk about how Cineplex has kind of monopolized the Canadian market, and they have all these missed opportunities, be it the long walk not having the treadmill screening or whatever. But yeah, the Alamo Draft House partnered up for this because yeah, Channing Tatum, obviously famous quote from, again, I think it was 21 Jump Street, where he goes, "My name's Jeff." The real life crime story is based off is a guy named Jeff who, like you said, robs all these McDonald's and then escapes prison and hides out inside a Toys R Us for like what seems like most of a calendar year. It's like summer to Christmas, basically, like early summer to Christmas. So kind of crazy. But yeah, again, Alamo Draft House was like, hey, remember that meme? Remember that quote? Because this is another movie with "My name's Jeff," Channing Tatum line from ages ago. Get a free ticket. If your name's Jeff, show us your ID, show up at participating Alamo Draft House, get a free ticket. I appreciate that marketing and studios are putting some effort in, even if it is like a low effort, like remember that meme kind of thing. But again, yeah, Cineplex, step your game up. Like I'm not even named Jeff, but it'd be nice to know that I could tell a guy named Jeff, go see this movie for free opening weekend. Like,
Cineplex does
not to
nothing to
derail.
encourage people to friggin' go to the movies. They're like, hey, we have rec rooms now and palladiums. And it's like, bro, no, like, fucking stop.
Hey,
Um,
don't worry. If you pay for Cine Club members, you get discounts on our outrageously expensive concessions. Does that sound good to you, fatty? Is what they said to me, and I said, sounds good. And now I
I
plug
mean,
it to
hey,
everybody.
I definitely get my money's worth on Cine Club,
I
but
do.
yeah, you got to do more to
I think you and I
market
are
the
more
damn thing.
excited for the Cine Club Wrapped, like the Spotify Wrapped at the end of the year, where it gives you your like
Yeah,
metrics of how much you've saved. So competitively, pretty
I was
excited
in the
because I think
top
Shea,
1% last year.
Yeah, Shea sees the most movies, but I think I blow the concessions budget compared to Shea. Like I definitely overindulge on popcorn, Diet Cokes, and the occasional black cherry White
Well, you
Claw.
will definitely have me on drinks, although they did the refills, so maybe you're not spending as much now. And I'm trying to eat better, so I'm trying not to spend as much either. So it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out, but I won't be giving you stiff competition till the end of the year. But yeah, to wrap up my spoiler-free stuff, like, yeah, it was just one of those movies that I'd like, sure, I guess you could put it on. I would never care to really go out. Literally, there's one joke that I remember that actually got a chuckle out of me, and it was a single joke near the beginning. Um, but like again, it wasn't like I didn't dislike it. It wasn't that I was rolling my eyes or I was impatient. Like I was engaged enough in what was going on, and again, like because I didn't know any of the real story, I was like, I was. You can make some pretty accurate assumptions, I would say, but like by and large, I didn't know beat for beat how this was all gonna go and stuff like that. So yeah, I think like maybe if you just I hate mom's gonna shoot me for for bringing it up, but like I'd be
Like 3 weeks in a
curious to
row.
see where my mom fell on this, because I feel like, like for a lot of people this will be something that like yeah, and then you just move on, you never really think about it again optimistically. But apparently Brandon feels a lot stronger, so I don't know if we
Well,
want to enter quickly into the spoilers so you can
before we get to it,
convince me of
yeah,
your point of view here.
before we get into it, and I spoil the movie or get into the details, I would say that this movie, in a spoiler-free way, is kind of similar to like a Catch Me If You Can or like The Talented Mr. Ripley, movies about guys who maybe are behind the eight ball in life and kind of buckle down in their own kind of way, where instead of doing what the right thing is, they do the wrong thing and they find their skill sets paying off doing morally questionable things and being shisty, I guess. Like that's very, very much something I love. Like in movies, like I romanticize the white collar crime criminal rags to riches story, but I would say this is definitely not a rags to riches story. It's like try not to be further in the rags story after a certain point. So yeah, I guess we'll get into the spoilers, but I think thematically, if you like Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me If You Can, it's got a similar vibe. Just a very charismatic, uh, bad guy that you're rooting for because you see the systems in place and the way society is, and these guys are able to kind of just, I don't know, operate in a very weird area and get the bag. And then crime doesn't pay sometimes, but it's fun to watch these people make these choices. I think Adriana has a really good line about when we saw, was it Positions or something, where it was the crypto scam movie, and it was just like it's so hard to watch somebody make a
Yeah.
painfully bad choice over and over again for 2 hours straight. And in this movie, there are some painfully bad choices, but I feel like I was a little bit more endeared, being like, I get it. I like the guy. I like Channing Tatum. It's nice to see him in movies again. Again, before spoiling anything, I just general thoughts here. It's really nice to see Channing Tatum taking roles that's not Blink Twice, where he plays like a Mark Zuckerberg meets Epstein's Island character. Like, and before that, what was it? A cameo in like This Is the End or whatever. Like, I don't think he's been in movies very much since like Magic Mike 2. So it's nice to see
Well,
him
didn't they
back
have the
in.
third or fourth Magic Mike or something? But I think that definitely would have slipped past both of you and I's watch lists.
Oh, not me.
Well,
I would
first
have.
of
I would
all,
have been
I
clocked in for that.
I can't let this slide comparing this to Leo and Spielberg has got to be one of the craziest things I've heard about this movie in a while. Catch Me If You Can. Honestly, there was a single movie this made me think about, and how this movie was inferior to it in every single conceivable way, and that was Logan Lucky, also with Channing Tatum,
Oh
which
yes,
is
yeah,
a
that was really good.
substantially better movie in my opinion. And again, like I understand what you're going for in this, but I think even thematically that way, that movie is kind of a closer callback to it, because they are Like I think even in that one he's a veteran, or maybe his brother was a veteran, but either way, like they're veteran, criminal, small town kind of energy and stuff like that.
Don't know where
And
they fit
so
in, so they,
right. And so I think that's a much more apt and on a quality level comparable film.
Okay,
But
to I do want to get to the spoilers, but to vindicate myself a little bit, of all the director's movies, I would say this is definitely the least like edgy, or maybe has the least amount of staying power. But this is the
I
same
didn't even
director
recognize the
of
name. Yeah.
he's the director that did Blue Valentine, A Place Beyond the Pines, The Place Beyond the
Oh,
Pines, which to me
this
changed my life when I
that
saw those edgy high
pains
schooler.
me, man, because those movies are so much better than this movie.
He also did
He gets
Sound
me
of Metal.
regard.
Like this is like an
Yeah.
Oscar nominated guy, if not winner. I don't know. I'm not a professional film journalist or anything. I shouldn't have to know what I'm talking about to have a podcast. But yeah, this guy's got some really great movies in his repertoire. So, and if I'm being honest, again, this is a mild spoiler, a great segue. One of the last shots in this movie, I genuinely compared it to was it American Beauty with Kevin Spacey, where he's looking at the plastic bag in the wind. I was like, there's a scene with a balloon floating up into the air at the end, and I was like,
Oh, but dude,
cinema,
oh, you're killing
cinema.
me here. You're killing me. It's so much like in the loosest way possible, yes, but I just watched that like last month or something like that, and it's so much shittier. Like it doesn't elicit the same feelings, but no, I just like again, it's not an aggressively again, I'm mid on this movie. It's better than like I think it'll probably sound like I'm giving it credit for in this conversation, but it really to me is just one of those movies, like I'll try to do a Brandon recommendation where it's like if you're blind and deaf and you need to put something on while you're babysitting or something, you can throw this movie on. I don't know.
If you're
Like
hiding out in a Toys R Us for 6 months on end, and you have a 2004 baby monitor set up to watch one movie on a DVD,
yeah.
this one would suffice. No,
No, it
but
wouldn't.
yeah.
It would drive me insane. I just turn myself back into the police. Um, but let's dig
Let's
into it a
dive
little
in.
bit
Yeah.
here because really I don't have I saying like spoilers again. I think like I said the true story is out there for people and I haven't corroborated like how much of this is legit and whatever else. But I think again the only reason this movie kind of escapes being something I disliked is because all of the like the actors are really solidly cast and even Channing Tatum with these serious moments. um I think I totally forgot. Someone had told me about the fact that this was the same director as Blue Valentine. Blue Valentine is a movie I adore. I love that movie so much. And again, one of those ones that like drew that feeling out of me. I just don't know comedically, like tonally, this movie didn't really work for me that way because it was semi-serious, but it was light. And it kind of falls into that safe classification, I would say, and the lightness of this didn't work for me. Um, and the serious stuff as a result, like I kind of struggle a little bit with Channing Tatum in these kind of moments, and I find it difficult for a movie to try and elicit too strong of feelings. Basically, I think they put the emotion in the wrong place. Like, I didn't feel bad for him at the end of this movie. I felt bad for her and her family. And I felt like the movie wanted me to be sympathetic to him or feel bad for him about these kinds of choices he made a little bit. Because when we're seeing these emotional moments happen primarily with him, I was like, I didn't care. I was like, more like, I was more invested into the impacts of, Kirsten Dunst's character and her family. And I was actually kind of pissed in the movie, and this is like we're in spoilers because this is the title card thing at the very end, but they kind of show them having kind of this, I wouldn't want to say a reunion moment, but what I would consider definitely is a positive interaction after the events of the movie. And then they say that she basically remarried and like moved on and hadn't seen him in an incredibly long time or whatever. And I felt like that I'm like, okay, so like there was more there, and that to me was really the, if you're going to go down a emotional road with any of them, I felt like she deserved it, and like that was where I as an audience member was most sympathetic. So when I'm watching him get all choked up about being an idiot for this whole duration, and like it's one of those cases where like, well, how did you think this was going to go? And there, the movie's aware of that, to be sure, but just then when you're spending time with your main character who's made these, it just didn't work for me as an emotional beat. So then I just kind of was like, well, but he
It's
plays
funny
it well enough, and I don't really lay any of that on him. But
to get into that. I would agree quite like a bit. I definitely think the emotion is on the impact of the people in his life and not his life so much. My girlfriend and I were discussing this quite heavily when we left because I was team Channing Tatum as much as possible, having such a crush on the guy, obviously. But yeah, when they have that scene at the end and they kind of like, they're in the visiting section of the jail and they kind of make nice or whatever. Right before that, it's him in like group therapy at the prison, and he's telling a story, and everyone's like, "That's a really good story, man. The way you like tie in that emotional beat of realizing, you've been like this your whole life, man. That's really good, Holmes." And there's like he's dapping him up for his therapy story. A huge part of me was like, I like that this is an idea that if you're really into it like me, I guess you could go, this was a guy who just never really fit in, never really had a good set of friends or good role models. Like his essentially best friend is like also a pretty scummy guy,
mhm.
and and when I was saying that to my girlfriend too, I'm like, he lives in a motel. No, no actual businessman's in a motel. When she was like, no, he was away on business. I was like, that was a euphemism, babe. He was definitely doing crime or smuggling people or smuggling drugs. Like he was definitely doing something. He wasn't on a legit business trip. It was a business trip. But there's
Didn't he say he
I
was
don't know,
back in Afghanistan or something like that?
yeah, and then Channing Tatum's like, no, because we both were discharged. And then she's like, oh, okay, well, then he's on a business trip, read between the lines, cousin Oliver or whatever. And, so I don't know, I liked so much of it, but I do think like there's a good element where it's not sympathy for Channing Tatum, but it's like you do feel bad that maybe you just slipped through the cracks as somebody who never really found his purpose or his meaning. And I think a lot of the elements in this, it's very divorced dad coded. It's a midlife
Mhm.
crisis movie, I think, above a lot. Like it's Kirsten Dunst's midlife crisis. It's Channing Tatum's. There's that weird kind of parasocial relationship he forms watching her in the store on the baby monitors that he sets up in the Toys R Us. I like that element. Like that's like a great part of the story as far as how do you get this to be interesting, a guy hiding behind the walls of a Toys R Us for 6 months. Um, and the fact that he kind of by happenstance kind of ends up getting to like date her and gets to like fall in love with her and fall in love with her family in this way of like he's lost that family. He's been living like subhuman levels of comfort, like showering in the sink at a Toys R Us with the cameras being off and eating pablum to stay alive. Like, um, I think those elements for me really were strong where I didn't feel bad for him, but I definitely had a level of empathy of like, this guy is making the best of a terrible life that he made worse with choices to rob that McDonald's. It's probably a little too early to get into my hot take, but I was saying like you could argue that his first wife, like the wife that leaves him at the start of the movie in the McDonald's parking lot, being like, I'm taking the kids, I'm leaving. Never supporting his dreamer mentality of like, I'm going to find a way. I have my superpower of being observant and stuff. Is kind of like the antagonist that starts the plot because she's with him after he robs the 45 McDonald's. They're at his daughter's birthday a year later. So it shows like him being poor down his luck to having money. And his life's really good. They live in the suburbs. He's got the new TVs. He's got the dream bike in the garage. Like life's good for Channing Tatum 1 year forward. Like the prologue of everything in the very first act kind of showing how he descent into the main part of the movie, which is hiding out on the run from the cops and all that. It's like they weren't really, they were like newly separated because they had those two twins that I assume were theirs in the backseat of the car. So those were kids who had been born in the last year or so. Looks like they were separating. He got his money right. She came back. Things were good. Goes to jail. Immediately moves on from them, still living in the house he bought with all the stolen money. Basically getting all the benefits, taking the guy's family. Like it was divorced dad Cody because I thought the ex-wife was like the real bad guy. um, And then when he gets to be the loving, charming dad to this new family, like a plug and play surrogate family, there's that parasocial element that I really could like understand, like because he's lost so much, and then he finally got to find that to the point where he's like he was throwing away this start over getaway that was his driving force for the early half of the movie. So I just that's really vague, like roundabout idea there, but I really do think like you don't have to feel bad for him at the end, but I think like you root for him pretty consistently with what they're showing on screen. Like it
Well,
felt
I
like a buddy
agree,
of mine
but
that was down on his luck.
I think that's also part of my problem with the movie is that like they try too hard to make him seem good. And like a lot of things that I think are weird, like again, you say this whole angle of like they like he doesn't use what he like he sees Kirsten Dunst's character, he changes the schedule and shit. Like he doesn't manipulate that in a way that allows him to like get in on the inside track or anything. Like you said, it's kind of happenstance that they also get to hook up. But like there was something eerie about that I feel like I was reading, but like the movie doesn't seem interested in kind of addressing any of that at all. And like I think that's part of my problem of is that the movie tried to make him feel too sympathetic, where it's like you at some point you need to be, and like I guess he kind of got there by the end, but like I guess I'm not sympathetic for this way of like he kind of implodes his own family and situation, and then effectively is doing it again. And like early on, that's what also I felt like maybe frustrated me a little bit narratively was how like early on in the relationship kind of montage stuff we get, like there's the scene of them being like, we could move out of here and get away, right? And she's like, no. And he like still goes on and he still continues on, and you seem like it's just all kind of up in the air. And so like there's moments, like I would say only really one, where the movie makes him like look bad, actively look bad, and that's when he's doing the last robbery at the very end,
Yeah, like
or right near
almost
the very
kills
end.
the security guard. Yeah, like
Yeah,
he
like hits
whips
him
him
and
so bad
is
he's bleeding out.
yeah, and freaks people out where like they make again, they literally make a point, and I guess this is true, of like him being nice, and when he would lock the McDonald's employees in the freezer or whatever, he'd make sure they all had their jackets and stuff like
Gave him
that.
the jacket off his back, and I was like,
Exactly, exactly. And I was like, I was with that and I was okay, but again, like it just hit this point where I was just like, I don't know, this it just felt like it didn't really dig into any of that in a way that I thought was really interesting. And again, like partially it could be why I was just wildly I'm not a very I'm sympathetic to people that find themselves in positions beyond their control, but I'm a little less sympathetic when you're actively putting yourself in those ones. So again, like the characters that I thought were more interesting were like Kirsten Dunst and her family. um and again, like even just like I thought there was a like the tender moment that really did work for me, I will say, is the church. Like again, Ben Mendelsohn, his wife, basically how that kind of community like rallied around this guy who, like was clearly down on his luck, but is playing nice. And I thought like that kind of angle was like a much more like effective kind of positive emotional beat for the movie for me. But yeah, I mean, I really don't have a whole lot to go off of. I will say the one joke that made me laugh was, what did he call him? Like, you're the dumbest idiot or the dumbest smart guy I ever met or the smartest dumb guy I've ever met or something like that right at the beginning, because I'm like, yeah, like that tracks with like how he plays it and the things that he does, which I thought was kind of interesting. But yeah, just one of those things is like find a way to use your powers for good, man, because what you took that route and it didn't pay off for you.
I do like that a lot. Like I think like me reading deeper in the movie to justify why I enjoyed it as intellectual divorced dad's thinking man here. I do think like there was a theme there for sure of community. Like he
Mhm.
I think it's implied with what's shown on screen. And this was a big part of my debate with my girlfriend whether or not this movie was a phenomenal movie or an okay movie. But I think for what they show on screen is like he doesn't fit back into society. Maybe it feels like it's implied that the military liked him because he was a good guy for noticing patterns and being good for operations. So I definitely think it was like this themes of community and feeling like where you belong, not feeling he fit back into the real world after the military, not feeling like he really was even fitting into the world of crime he was going into, as far as his buddy being like, you ain't a gangster like me. He kept saying stuff like that. It's like, you got to not say goodbye. There's no romance in crime, dude. Like, that was his thing. Almost like his friend was a good foil, because Channing Tatum was a pretty good criminal, a dumb one, yeah. But I do think the themes with like the church and just seeing like how he got so welcomed in and finding a place of belonging, I guess, is kind of like a big theme. And I do agree with you. Like, the church stuff was probably some of the stronger parts of the movie, because you really do um it picks up a lot of what was lacking in the movie, which is a bit of like heart and like, how do you keep going as a guy living behind a wall in a Toys R Us? Like, what's there to do? Like, how does your mind stay sharp, the way he talks about? And it's like, oh, this budding romance. And I do think it's really fun to see him be super charming. Like, when he was at the ladies brunch and he was just laying it on thick with all that like grandmother riz, talking about all their boots are
Yeah.
so nice. And I think the funniest line in the movie is because he's wearing like, it's fun. Okay, so two bits here I have for sure. One is my personal bit of Channing Tatum. I had the whole theater swoon when they saw his brunch outfit. It was such a current hot boy look of like a very tight shirt with ultra baggy 2000s jeans and some like Timberlands. I swear there was 10 people in a packed like full screening of this that like swooned when they had the full body shot of him walking in the park. Cause I was like, that in 2004, like high fashion for today is the look. So Channing Tatum wearing that exact baggy pant thing, like 10 out of 10 for the ladies in my theater. But then, yeah, the follow up when they go on that date, she's like, "You want to go back to my place?" He's like, "Oh, really?" Hard cuts to them having sex. And then, like, it's just like slowly dollying in on them, like just going feral in the bedroom. He's like, "See, I told you I'm not gay." And, and that was like, people were like, yeah, like just clapping along. And I was laughing so hard at that. But I don't know. There was a few big comedy payoffs for it
That
that
made your crowd pop, dude. Yeah, that was
pop,
just
dude,
like a
packed
bit
theater.
that just did not land. I was at a much less busy screening, admittedly, but again, I don't really like you are. You were very, when we were at Naked Gun, you're like, I feel like we're the only two laughing. I'm like, yeah, man, laugh away. That's the whole point.
Yeah,
But
I
yeah,
thought
I
I was
just never
snickling the
really
whole
got
movie.
compelled over way. Yeah. I just
Yeah.
never got really compelled to that point. But like I said, I think again, like when I give out something like a mid score, I think like your mileage may vary ultimately. Like I think, yeah, it's just one of those things is like, does this comedy land? Like, I think if the comedy lands for you more than it did for me, then yeah, definitely this probably would slide higher into a more enjoyable experience because, like I said, competently, like it's good enough that like it didn't, like I said, I didn't dislike it. It was just like things just didn't kind of hit as hard as I would have wanted to be something I could like recommend as I really liked and enjoyed this. So, but yeah, maybe you'll fall more on Brandon's side for this one.
I definitely think it's a good way to end that off, as far as like mileage may vary, because I do think I went in expecting it to be like a nobody two, where it's like, here's kind of something that I might enjoy if I'm in the right headspace. But ultimately, I went in with like very medium to low expectation and just felt it's like not as good as The Place Beyond the Pines or Blue Valentine, um, or The Sound of Metal, maybe. But I do think, like, for my personal taste, as far as like the divorced dad elements, down your luck, white collar crime. I mean, this is actually not even white collar crime. It's not like he's committing fraud and
I
identity
was to say
theft.
like
It's like
he's
real
stealing.
crime.
He's just this is
Yeah,
crime. Yeah,
dude,
yeah. This is blue
the
collar.
scene where he breaks through the roof of the Asian nail salon instead of the pawn shop, and he's
Yeah,
like, "Oh," and the tension's getting kind of high because it's like, this is near the climax. The whole theater, when it does like the wide shot showing the two storefronts and how he's not in the right one,
yeah.
everybody in my theater, I had a great theater experience. Everyone was like, "Oh, no," and so it's like I was getting those really really good theater reactions. So I'm sure that played a huge part in it. Like, I think if I saw this any other time than like an advanced screening where everybody there like wanted to be there, like was invited cordially or won, the ability to go early. If I saw this on like even an opening Friday with half the people, Yeah, I don't think I would have had the same mileage, but yeah, I really, really enjoy it, and I would say I'd probably recommend it to almost everybody. I recommended it to my mom on Thanksgiving. I was like, "Oh, you'd like this," because it also it translates very simply. Like there's no high mystery to it. I say like
Mhm.
when I watch it with my mom, she'll be like, "Who's that person?" Like, like we just started watching, mom. Like they're about to tell us who that person is. Where this movie really doesn't have that. Like I was just watching the new Conjuring, the last Conjuring movie. Only reason I watched it is because its box office dummied so many other movies in the box office.
Mhm.
It did higher than Sinners, and I was like, I heard this was very middling, and I guess people went out in droves because I big Conjuring fan. But even watching that with my girlfriend, sober at home post Thanksgiving meal, even my girlfriend was looking at me being like, "Is that the same girl from 3 scenes ago that got the magic MacGuffin thing?" And I'm just like, no, I'm pretty sure this is a new family that also has a short, curly haired girl who also has a demonic issue going on. Um, where that movie with my mom definitely would have been like, who's got the mirror? Why? What's the mirror? And I'm like, they're explaining it. They're going to explain the big plot device, mom. Don't worry. But so yeah, anyways, I definitely recommend this movie to a lot more people. I think it's surprisingly full of heart, and yeah, I was very thrilled that I got the opportunity to see it this week. Thrilled to talk about it this week. So yeah, for me, not much more to say other than like I think I would still give it like a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. I really
A
enjoyed
4.
seeing it. A
Oh.
4. It's in my top 10, I think. Like the
So
the
that's in
number 10
love
and 9
territory. That's
spots.
a full heart, dude. We
I loved
gotta,
it,
yeah,
dude.
that's a
The,
full
the the
heart. All
number
right.
10 through 8 spots on my top 10 are going to be such stiff competition for me
It's
personally
gonna
because
be
there's
a
so
fun
many
end of
movies I
year
just want to put there
episode.
to say they made it, but it's like to climb to like the I don't know 7 through 4 is like impossible, and the top three are getting pretty cemented as time goes on. But
Well, I need you to mentally prepare yourself because when we do the 10 of the year episode, I will give 0 allocated time to honorable mention episodes. We will be able to say these are the ones I wish I could have put on my list and I can't. You can read that list off, but we talk about none of them unless they're on each
oh yeah,
other's
a hundred
list. So
percent. And that's what I'm
otherwise, we'll have
hoping.
an 800-hour podcast talking about
Oh,
everything.
totally. I picture yours and Adrian's lining up a little closer than mine being like, I feel like you guys will be like, oh, thanks for participating this year, Brandon. Yes, Final Destination 6 was a top 5 movie. Yes.
Well, like
Okay,
I
back to
said,
the
I
kids'
have yet to
table.
give out a 5 this year, a
Yeah.
full big heart, so I'm curious to see what we'll do.
S-
But anyway, speaking of movies I didn't give a full heart to, I'm going Bone Lake next. I really
Yeah,
don't
let's
have a
speed run
lot to
Bone
say
Lake.
about this movie because honestly, the thing that intrigued me as I saw like a month plus ago now, whatever it was, a poster for this, and if Brandon clips this for socials, we'll put it up on here. But it was this poster where it was a skeleton with another skeleton in front of it on its knees, and I was like, oh, Bone Lay, okay, so they're going for it. And then I thought like the funny name, the clever bit. I'm like, okay, like just kind of a horror movie. I saw the trailer and I'm like, okay, well, I'm not gonna be expected to blow away by anything, but I was like, let's see it be like at least a fun, self-aware bit. And at the very beginning, there's what I would call semi-shocking nudity, where I was like, oh wow, that was a
It
cool
was downright
shot.
artful. It was a reflection
Yeah,
in a
and
puddle in a slow motion
then
chase
they
scene. I was like,
never
wow, they got me.
fucking did like anything again. And it was just like I couldn't believe it. And I'm like, you can't sell me. And again, like in a normal circumstance, I don't care, but you can't sell me like, oh, Bone Lake, the sex horror movie, and like like plot wise, you know exactly what's gonna happen. If you watched our weapons episode and I talked about Barbarian on that, the setup is exactly what you think it is. In the same way I was afraid the setup for Barbarian was what it is, this is exactly that. Believe it or not, if you show up to an Airbnb and then other people are coming to that Airbnb, probably don't stay at the Airbnb with them.
No, no, dude, you play rock,
Shocker.
paper, scissors to figure out who stays and goes, and then you don't, and then
And then you
maybe there's some
don't, and
sexual
then
tension about. Yeah.
tension. Calling
Uh,
it tension would be
tension.
overstating it. But yes, just to
Uh,
close out my bit, because I will only have one bit for
yeah.
this, was that I just was blown away by the criminal underserving of its own name and premise. Like be raunchier, lean way into the bit, too much of this movie was like straight up relationship drama and like semi
Which isn't
serious, like
handled as well as it could have been. I think
not
that
at
was the
all.
strongest part, but not that great.
And like like the characters, like the performances, like I didn't hate, but didn't like blow me
I
away
hated
or
one.
anything.
I hated
Yeah,
one
well,
performance.
I didn't
So
care enough really to, I guess, hate about any of it, but that's basically
yeah,
my bit is like, yes, this way undersell, like way under delivered on its premise. And for a movie that I was hoping to have fun with, the movie, once again, like Hard Eyes, you peak for me in the 30 seconds, and then I spend the rest of the movie trying to get back there, and it never got back there. So there's my take
I
on
I would say
Bowman
that I actually do want to spoil this one quite a bit because I feel like I have so many thoughts on it,
Well,
but I do
there's
want
the
to give
spoiler
some.
free. Dig in. Go ahead.
Yeah, so general thoughts, which will lead in the spoilers. Definitely is a well shot movie for what it's doing. There was a lot of fun camera work, a lot of cool visuals. They take moments to kind of do like a camera being inverted as people walk by. It's better camera work than like most streaming shows and movies. I'm watching The Woman in Cabin
Oh,
10,
high
Netflix's
praise.
number one top 10 movies this week, and I'm like, this is such a boring movie visually. At least Bone Lake visually, like I said, the high art dong shot off the rip in the water there, pretty good. But ultimately, yeah, I definitely found myself thinking the characters are making dumb choices in a predictable script. And it was getting to me after a while, and especially with the way things do conclude without saying anything. I don't care as much, but I did want to zero in on a few things. I don't know about you. You know, we talk about how guessing the plot twist or guessing lines of dialogue is sometimes the only thing keeping me in a movie I don't necessarily love. Um, I guess the second plot twist, not even 10 minutes in, or maybe 15 minutes in, and I guess the actual main plot twist halfway through because I was like, oh, I didn't even think about it because it's so lazy. Like I was like, oh, I wasn't even gonna make the, spoiler 3, 2, 1. I don't think anyone's really caring that much,
It's
but
not worth it. Yeah.
yeah, there's two couples go to an Airbnb. It's deluxe. There's like, I'm assuming it's a mansion with like 18 rooms, and another couple shows up. Their key also works, and they decide to stay the weekend, which they had plenty of space to do it, unless one of the couples was weird. One of the couples is in fact very weird. Uh, and as it goes on, they do say a line like, we've known each other since we were kids. Our parents always didn't approve of it. I'm like, they're siblings. They're siblings who fuck. That's their thing. And sure
Oh
enough, so
yeah, it's
so then
so
on top of
yeah.
that, it would go 20 minutes later. I was like, oh, their key works. It's probably because it's their Airbnb. Like they probably planned this shit. Like this is obvious. I wasn't even going to guess that. Like I was expecting that to be so, and it was. But I mean, like not like I'm like master screenwriter here. But on the note of what you said about like Bone Lake having all the sexual innuendo and sold that way, that opening is like the best part of it as far as selling the over the top sex camp type stuff. And then we get these two prude character protagonists that are like very, I don't know, reserved. And, he's talking about the story he's writing, which is kind of like the, front half of that opening sequence.
Uh-huh.
And she goes, well, yeah, it's just a little gratuitous. And then they never go back to it. It's like, I thought that'd be the point. These prudes get surrounded by, little vignettes of that, or there'd be other couples showing up, or it's a swingers party. Every room has a different swinger. Like they could have gone way more, but it definitely felt like a movie that was like, well, we only have so much budget and we only have one location with a few really good actors. And then here I am saying this now again. I don't know if it was the script or the direction, but the main character, I forget his name. It was the one from Mexico City with the Hispanic accent. He would
Uh-huh.
give some lines that were just like said so spicy and passionate, but the lines themselves were just so like, you're choosing to say that. It felt like almost like you're playing like Oblivion or some sort of Skyrim video game, and it's like you've prompted the wrong discussion, where it's just like the guy steals his grandmother's ring and proposes, and he's just like, "What are you
Oh, that
doing?"
was such a
And you're like,
frustrating part. Yeah,
you
yeah,
you would
yeah.
immediately be like, you would ruin that moment. You'd be pissed, and you would leave. You would realize you're like actually surrounded by sociopaths. You wouldn't have that like human, um, let's talk about this in private kind of thing that they do, and also, I don't know about you, but I totally think the girlfriend fucked the guy. Like I'm confident that she slept with him, and they gloss right over that. Like I do not
Yeah,
trust that she
I was
didn't.
kind of in on that too. Yeah, I thought so.
Like even Renata, who's like, I don't want everything spelled out for me, but they spell so much of everything else out. Why did they not just show us like a cell phone video of her blowing him in the back of the Audi? Like I feel like that's exactly where it was going. Because he's like, I didn't sleep with her, I promise, and she's just like, I trust you. And then he's like, did you sleep with him? And she's like, okay, I trust you. Let's drive home. And then that goes nowhere fast. This, yeah, all the payoffs,
Yeah,
everything.
because
There's
love isn't about that, dude. I don't know what the fuck.
well, it's not about trust. Are you kidding me? So
Yeah, dude.
yeah, I definitely think for the premise it was like underutilized, and I do think like this is a you can have a generic premise and then execute it really well. And this just wasn't one of those cases. Like I think again, the
No, I
location
agree.
and the shots of this movie, they had the shot of all those cars piled up in the lake, implying people go missing there, and like that was beautiful. And there's a scene where they're in the river, and she goes to stand on the hood of a Volvo or a Volkswagen, and you're like,
Hmm.
oh, she's about to figure this out. Doesn't really. It just kind of has that hunch that these people are weird, and it's like if
Hmm.
that's all you're going off of, the whole audience has been feeling that for 50 minutes.
Yeah.
Like it was a little bit manipulative in the presentation of it, which I'm fine with. Again, I love Strange Darling for that. But yeah, this movie, I was frustrated with how much I would have and was bought in, and then how much it didn't really deliver on. And I was like the prime audience guy to be like, oh, a good simple slasher with like, a generic twist, generic plot, but like really fun, like funny games and sex stuff going on. But the sex stuff was like, if I was in the eighth grade, this was a very raunchy movie. But it's like, oh, a
Yeah.
dildo masturbating with a shower head in the world's murkiest water. Show us those titties. Like you tease this so much, but you're gonna
Well,
like hide almost all nudity and all the lighting choices, and like it becomes very sexless right after that opening. And it's like, I'm not a horn dog, but give us what you promised,
well,
or don't sell it as Boner Lake. Like,
well, that just to class up Brandon's final point on the nudity a little bit. I
go
I
ahead.
I agree because it's not even again just like the marketing element. Like the movie opens so strongly with that stuff that it is like I said, I wouldn't say I was shocked, but I was when he shoots the nutsack, I was like, oh shit.
Yeah.
Like I laughed, like I was like, okay. And so you've just now set something that never once does the movie even kind of approach. Like I will say the two kills we otherwise see were pretty like gory, but again in dark lighting, and it's like, well, I whatever, but like
Even
we're
when the
gnarly
cherry
enough
top girl
stuff.
was topless near the end, she was shadowed in so much light. Like I thought the whole
Yeah,
point was maybe because they were more sexually explorative that they would be more hunting in the nude. But yeah, the nudity gets dialed right down like
yeah,
immediately
but like
after that opening.
the reason I think from an artistic level that kind of is unhelpful is that if you're trying to push boundaries on this, if you're trying to really like whoa, relationships and lay things that like expose these kinds of things and really like not shy away from the realities of it, to then be so conservative about the visuals, and I don't mean just the nudity, like like I said, this is a movie in eighth grade, I'd be like, oh shit, dude, we saw the movie. Did you see? You could kind of see that she was topless, even though you couldn't tell. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just really. It feels like it doesn't do anything to push. I kind of like any levels of taboo or edginess. Like, it's so dulled and safe in a movie that I feel like no, lean into it, go out there, like push this in a kind of a shocking big way, and it
Yeah, give
never
a better
does, and
plot
so it
twist if you're not
doesn't.
going to deliver on the crude
Yeah,
nudity that the opening showed. Like it was
yeah.
so. Yeah, it evokes so little. And it's funny, again, I would still recommend this movie to a lot of people as like Halloween, you're looking for something to stream, just throw it on. But it's definitely something that I wouldn't say like rush it to the theater. It's no Roofman with a charming, heartwarming story. Uh, but yeah, anyways,
Definitely
so
not.
yeah, I definitely think if it's on streaming or if it's on some sort of platform that you already pay to subscribe to, it's a fun watch. It's better than most Netflix TV shows. But as far as a movie goes that's sold as what it is, I couldn't buy in as much as I wanted to, even though it was set up well. Again, like the barbarian thing again is a great reference to being like, here's what you expect is going to happen. And it's exactly what happens. Yes, the couple that double
Yeah,
booked
that's
is serial killer,
yeah.
and they're twin siblings, and they do kinky
And
sex
that
stuff.
was an eye roll worthy premise 6 years ago or whatever it was when that first came out, so, or
Yeah,
3 years
I
ago.
do
So
I
it's
do want to
like,
say high praise for like Easter eggs later on. Again, I think visually this was well shot. I'm glad we're in the era where movies that feel like B movies are well enough shot that you kind of can let go of some of those like, oh, this is boring or whatever. Like I was entertained watching it, but there was a scene where they're going through all the files, like the big explanation part where they're like, oh, they've been watching us with cameras the whole time. I think everything the male protagonist said, half the lines, I felt like, do you want to take another read of that one? Like, they've been watching us through cameras the whole time. It's like I was just like, I don't know. Like, is that a language thing, or is it just like, again, the writing was so bad the guy was just like ADRing some of those lines in. They just it was. But there's a scene where the Chad of the couple was because that's their whole thing is they seduce and ruin their relationships. And again, I think a normal person, when their ring is stolen and then proposed to one up them, would have just flipped their shit and gone home, and you would have been fine and safe, you know.
yeah,
But anyways, when they're showing that the montage of them sleeping with other couples before they kill them, the Chad character is having sex with the one girl in the room on the couch. It's an ultra wide shot, but I could clock it in the background where he goes and he does the Patrick Bateman thing, and I was just like,
yeah,
okay, there's some love here. Like I see there was a vision, but I was just like, could have used another pass, and of like where the story was going. Like even when they're like, "Whoa, what? You wanted to take us to that third room and ruin the surprise first night?" And they're like, yeah, I mean, we're having fun with it. Like this is our thing, you know." It's like, yeah, they couldn't really even think of a great answer. Like, um, there's a Ouija board set up just as set dressing because clearly there's no real actual macabre elements of supernatural stuff. That's just like they put in there to freak out the guests. Like it's a vignette of set dressing to spook other people and us, the audience, with giving no answers. Like, could have benefited from a whole house like of people getting picked off. Just up the body count if you're going to be this kind of on the nose expected. Like,
yeah, yeah. I
yeah,
agree. Up the body
so
count, or like simplify your setup a little bit and just lean into that. Be a bit more subtle. Like again, I felt like when like the come-ons started happening too, I was like, what the
yeah.
fuck, dude? Like out of the gate, the first, I'm like, okay, not even like as an unreasonable. I'm like, that's just like obvious, weird. Like, there's no way it would naturally like progress. So yeah, I thought, all in
Also,
all,
there's
I
a
was a dislike on this one. I don't recommend it. Again, stop fucking finding all these stupid reasons to recommend a movie. If you're looking for something to watch and you have a lot of streaming services, I fucking promise you, there's better shit than Bone fucking Lake on there for you to
okay.
watch.
Last thing I gotta say about Bone Lake, gun to your head. You got to play the game to live, man. Do you go, I don't play games? Like the guy the whole time he's like, I don't play games. And like the whole, like there's some sort of motif there of like, be more playful, I guess. Cause like that was a big thing. Like they say,
Yeah.
play the game. And he's always like, I don't play games. I'm not competitive. Like, what were they trying to say? Were they trying to point out that he's lacking masculine traits? Like, I feel like there's so many half baked ideas in there that were like,
Uh,
repeated to get something across that was never even really loud and clear to begin with. So, yeah, you're right. Let's segue to something that had a similar body count. The dog horror movie, Good Boy.
yeah, and so the only movie of the three that I actually gave a positive score to, I did like this enough, but I was actually very disappointed uh in the execution. I felt like it was one of those things that it just kind of so much of the well just dig into it because I don't want to I want to just get the preliminaries. I liked it enough. I think it was inventive enough and was definitely a challenge to film. And I don't know if you stayed for through the credits, but they like have a
Of
whole
course,
thing at
yeah.
the end. Okay,
The
because the
credits, the
credits are
credits pushed it.
super fast.
The credits pushed it from a 4.5 to a 5 for me. This is my,
This
this
is a
is
five for
this is a
me.
5 for me,
Jesus
dude. I love
Christ.
this movie
I'm so
as a
glad
cat
you had
guy.
such a great week in the
It's
movies.
such a
Because
great
yeah,
week at the
that's
movies.
okay. Well, you know our spoiler-free thoughts then. So like, let's
Okay,
dig into this a
real
little
quick,
bit
because
more.
I do have a bit of spoiler free. I want to say I went into this really low bar. I was like, I'm going to go watch the dog horror movie. I'm not a huge dog guy. I'm a big cat guy, as you can tell. I was like, I'm going to go see a movie about a dog, and everyone's going to go, oh, when the dog looks sad, everyone's gonna go, oh, what a good boy. You know, like I hate dog people more than anything in this world. You go to up to a dog person and they're like, look at my half Shibu mixed terrier breed. Let's talk about how my dog was bred. You don't ever talk about like, oh, are you an Italian German mix? Like that's just weird to talk about ethnicity like that. Why do we talk about dogs like that? I am such a not a dog person guy. So when I went into this movie thinking I'm gonna feel just manipulated the whole time, hating dogs and dog people stuff. The movie was so strong and so fundamentally well made. The entire watch for me was really engaging. I was much more engaged with the pacing of this and some of the shots and the perspective of the filmmaking. Very strong. And again, as a cat person, I think if you're a pet person, maybe if you have like fish or a lizard, you might not feel this way. But as a pet person, you'll definitely find a lot of like empathy rooted in like the perspective of this movie. So I would say I loved it when I expected to almost dislike it off the rip. So really glad I saw it. And that's my spoiler free review without talking about any of the specifics.
Has
If you
someone been
have a pet, you'll like
sneaking
it.
Molly into the friggin' water in Toronto or something? And just like having the greatest time with these movies. Okay,
True,
to
because
dig
Bone Lake I
into
saw
it,
out of the city and I didn't like it.
that's what I mean. So to dig into it a little bit, I think I was trying to articulate this afterwards because I'm not the guy that likes to be like, well, that's not what I would have done, or I wanted the movie to go a certain direction. And the more I thought about how to best articulate that was that I think there's sort of two things in this movie that I think clash and contrast. And there is this haunting, like the setup there, that this owner is being haunted and we are seeing the movie through the dog's perspective. That I think clashes with this human story that is going on with the owner. That's a lot of themes on grief and loss and illness and, you know, all of those kinds of things. And I felt like it was like maybe the filmmaker had two kind of ideas and went, oh, and just threw them together. And then this is how we unfold, because on an execution level, like I really, really wanted to feel a lot more dread than I did in this movie. And I almost never, maybe a couple times, felt like good, genuine tension. Part of that I think was the visual of it. Like it was like clearly this weird, like digital mud thing that was like half transparent for most of the movie when you could see it. And so like that part, like I felt like those kinds of moments where you could build really good tension, the movie never really got me to that level. Certainly not onto something like even Undertone earlier this year. Like I was staring right in the same way. I was looking in the corners of the frame. Like it really is wanting you to do that. And they just didn't have anything placed there for me to feel significant tension build. So as a horror movie, I think it really didn't kind of land for me that way. And then as this dog focus kind of comes into play, I fucking hated the way that it ended. Um because like to me there was a much, and this is why I think the contrast is where this becomes a problem, is that they wanted this to be like a story about loss and, you know, like, you know, things, sometimes there's nothing you can do, or whatever the themes were that they were going for. But I felt for like a movie like this, with the premise and setup that it had, for it not to end in a bit more of a triumphant way, I felt just really felt like a letdown for me in watching it, where it was just kind of like, yep, the dog saw some weird shit, it was all for nothing, and the ending comes out and yep, that's how it goes. And I just felt like in terms of like when you're frustrated by a character's lack of utility, or that like they were inconsequential, like if they were not there everything would have happened the same way kind of thing, I feel like that's where this movie let me down. And I feel like there was a really good opportunity for me to feel like really good at the end of this movie and just like in a good spot. And it didn't deliver that either. So then I just kind of walked away feeling like a little spooked, impressed with some of the visuals. When the dog jumped out of the window, me and Ty both laughed. because it's like very clearly like fake glass CG, like little speckles of glass that go
My
by,
whole
and it was
theater
really funny.
jumped.
But
They were like, like that was really
no way,
thrilling for
dude.
my
Me and
entire
Ty were
theater.
howling when that happened. We both like huge laugh because it was so obviously fake. But yeah, like I feel like it should have been shorter as well. I feel like there was a lot, like, and it's
Wow.
not a long, like
You
it's
hated this movie.
nine
That's
84
crazy.
minutes. No, I gave it a 3, bro. I gave it a 3. I just, like I said, like the execution of it was there, but it just like it didn't come together. Like the potential was there. I feel like this is like, if this is the first movie people make with like the dog as the main character or whatever, and that's not Air Bud or something,
Yeah.
you now are set up to do, like, I think, a much more effective version. But this is like kind of, if you're a gamer at all that played games back when we were kids, this is how I felt about Assassin's Creed 1. I was like, oh, this is such a cool premise, and I like the basic necessities. I just want a little bit more. And then Assassin's Creed 2 came out. This is what I'm hoping with Good Boy 2 or whatever the hell they call it. I just hope there's a just better execution there.
Um, yeah, interesting. I was really expecting us to be in different, like, exact opposite boats here. Cause yeah, I do want to say, like, I think from like a fundamental aspect, and I feel like Ty could weigh in on this after making Dutch's Day Off. Um, they're like a movie that is a dog's perspective. I just think, like, filmmaking wise, and again, that I think the runtime, like you said, I think it's 74 minutes. It's pretty damn short, and I do think that
Mm.
includes the end credit kind of behind the scenes thing. And for me, I felt like that added a lot to it. And maybe that's like if you're being really critical, a cheap trick where you really enjoy the filmmaker's story and how they did it, and therefore, whatever gripes you may have had with it, it lessens the blow. But for me personally, um, I showed up at this movie as soon as it was starting. Like, it was like we walked in the nick of time, which is also 15 minutes late by the screening time, So we showed up when it was like Cineplex, like dimming the lights and like the opening.
Feature
Uh,
presentation.
yeah, like that's, so we walked in, and by the time the movie ends, I was like, damn, like I felt like I was on a roller coaster that whole time with no breaks in the middle. Like, I joke about the bladder being like an obvious tell where you're like, okay, cool, end of the second act, oblivious or obligatory, like, let's talk about how we feel before the action scene, where I'm like, I can take a bathroom break and, miss nothing because I know what's going to happen. This movie just, well, yeah, lightning fast pacing. I don't agree that it needed to be 15 minutes shorter, because then at that point it's an unsellable short film, or
I
like,
think honestly it should have been a short film on the way that it was set up. Like, I think you should have made this dramatically shorter.
wow,
Or
okay.
figure out a way to do this in a much more effective way. It does not warrant, I think, a feature length kind of extension out.
Yeah, I do think it's kind of crazy because it's a 74-minute movie, and I do think that includes those end credits that explain it all. For me, it felt like the pacing was so solid that it didn't bother me whatsoever. When the movie actually ended, I was kind of like, oh, that's the ending. And I will give you credit on that one, that I definitely felt like the ending was probably one of the weakest parts of the movie. But that being said, the whole experience for me was so strong that I was like, well, how could have they ended it? Like, in lesser movies, I'm like, well, actually, they could have done this with the rules they established, and I start leveling into it like as if I was the mastermind behind the screenplay. But I think in this one, for what my expectations were, which to be fair were rock bottom when I was like, oh, the dog horror movie. I think this would have done gangbusters at Fantasia. Like, we both missed the
It
screening
played
for it
there.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I really enjoyed it. I was going to ask you about specifics, things that went over my brain, because I'm not the most, my media literacy might be not the highest. But I think that opening, we're talking about the human drama, where I was saying I liked the
Mhm.
perspective so much where it was always in the background, and not to be as corny as The Walking Dead, but the horror isn't the ghost, Shay. It's the humans. It's the dog owner being so negligible and so kind of neglectful. Like, I think, like, the pet owner angle, I was saying not as a dog person, but just somebody that's a pet, you get these moments of like, oh my God, I had to leave my cat for the weekend, or I had to leave my dog, I had to, you're so clocked out from your everyday life and your real ongoings, your real life drama, your real life grief and loss, whatever, that you forget that there's this little creature that adores the hell out of you, and you're their best friend, and then you're not the best person to your pet all the time. And I think that was so clear to me and so emotionally impactful that when there are those 2-minute scenes of him getting like an MRI or whatever, I was like, yeah, this makes sense because they did need something else that just wasn't the dog being sad and waiting and the guy passing out drunk in his chair or whatever, you know? So the opening shot where, or the opening scene that I'm thinking of, is when he's like, all right, gotta go to work. I'll see you later. And then the dog just waits. It's a hard cut from sun up to sundown of the dog in the window waiting because he gets home from the bar drunk and he doesn't care and he's going to bed. That was so effective of getting me, a not dog person, to be like, oh my God, that poor sweet angel baby. Like I was so wrecked emotionally because I do think like it chooses that perspective really well. That I don't think the human elements of it dragged it down, and the fact that you never really see the owner's face, like it does feel like this is the best adaptation of Courage the Cowardly Dog. Like, I don't know. I saw it as a meme, and after seeing it, I'm like, yeah, it actually kind of is funny. But really, really liked a lot of it, and I think like again that ending with the filmmaking being explained was really good for me because I always talk about that exact experiment, the Russian one where it's like they show a man looking neutral and they edit in a bowl of soup. And now they're like, well, that means he's hungry. You know, people
Mm-hmm.
impose emotion onto what they're seeing. And in school, they taught that it's like the success of a shot is indicative of the shot before it and after it. So when I'm editing like a wedding video, that's like the whole thing. Or a photographer is like, oh, look at this shot. It's so great. Look at this shot. It's so great. But in the edit of a wedding, let's say, a very
Mm-hmm.
amateur filmmaker will tell you, it's like, you know, you cut to the groom looking down the aisle, then you cut to the dad looking down the aisle, and then you cut to somebody else looking down the aisle. It just doesn't mean anything. But when you intercut that reaction of like the groom looking down the aisle, the bride from a sweeping wide shot starting to walk, then a close up on her, and then back to the groom, you're telling those beats, and they're completely fabricated half the time, for me at least, where it's like the groom's looking at like, I don't know, one of the maid of honors walking in, but you just have that one shot of him looking neutrally out down the aisle. But you pop the bride in, and everyone's like, "Wow, he was so swooning, waiting for her at the head of the aisle."
Well,
And
I
half the
hope
time,
it
I don't.
wasn't for one of the maids of honor.
Yeah, well,
And
that's what I'm saying.
they were really excited about
Half
that.
the time, it's like not even the best man. It's like the fifth groomsman, and he's just like kind of smiling, being like, "Hey."
Yeah.
But you know, from the close up of him just kind of smiling, looking blankly down the same direction as where the bride comes from. So I think like, as far as me going to school, working in movies, and me being like somebody who pays a lot of attention to like the pro amateur side of like video, filmmaking, editing, and stuff like that, finding out it was just a guy making this movie over 3 or 4 years with his wife and his dog in their place in the cat and like in the woods. I was like, what a masterclass. This kicks so much ass compared to every like first director's feature film, every film student I've ever seen their thing. You know what I mean? Like, I just was so blown away that they were able to get so much emotion out of me as a viewer on a dog movie. Like I was picturing like the Air Bud or Cats versus Dogs, where it's just like that corniness, right? And this movie, I like it, the core of it being so empathetic towards like your pet. You know, again, maybe again, if you're not like an aquarium owner, I think most pet owners have that longing or that thought of like, well, how does my animal feel? I wish we could speak the same language. And you know, I think the filmmakers really get that point across. And yeah, of course, some of the horror stuff isn't the strongest. I felt it worked for me, like the slimy hand thing. I think that was pretty strong. A lot of audience reactions. I saw this on a Friday night. I was the only theater playing this in Toronto, and yeah, big crowd reactions the whole way through. Super dialed in. So yeah, at least for me, I had another great experience where I felt like I went in low expectation and was really impressed. And again, I think just the post credit explanation of how they did it really warmed me up to being like, this is far better filmmaking than a lot of things I've seen this year. You know, like I wish they had a bigger budget, maybe, you know, like what you're talking about, a better expansion without any fat added onto it, because it's a very lean movie in my opinion. But yeah, I think for what it is, I was like, this is top tier filmmaking, and it definitely feels like I could find a spot for this, my favorite movies of the year category, because I just was not expecting to think the dog horror movie was going to be like masterfully done compared to like how many movies have you seen where like it's so mid. Like even Bone Lake had a budget that's probably 10 times higher than this movie, you know? And this movie was so much more effective of getting me to uh feel something, even if again the story wasn't necessarily like crazy, or like you said, like yeah, the dog doesn't really change that much. Like I think there's a few scenes where maybe by it barking or trying to get him up or whatever, it saves him from being taken by this omnipotent death force or whatever. But at the end, yeah, you're right. Like the way it plays out is a little bit like vaguely like, well, I guess that just happened. You know, good boy. You know, like so I do agree with you on
Well,
that, but
I think you're giving the movie maybe a bit too much credit insofar as like the filmmaking stuff is definitely the only thing about this that I really like, that and the dog. And that like that in and of itself is so impressive and hard. And like, yes, for Ty's short film, which he did in a much more condensed timeline, like how difficult a lot of that was to do, and stuff is all like I was aware of a lot of that too. And I think for me is that like yes, they did that. They did that part effectively. I think the bits about the emotion about like treating animals and things like that, I wasn't sure the movie like that seemed to coincide with this idea of like possession that the movie flirts with, like as like Indy disappears or like falls asleep. Which, by the way, I'm so fucking over dream sequences in movies. So the fact they had dog dream sequences, I was like, fuck sakes. But this is purely like a Fantasia slash horror movie gripe that I have now, is that it's the easiest way in the world to do weird shit and have to not explain it at all. You're just like, it was a dream, dude. It was a dream. So it's just a way to pad runtime. And I fucking hate now every time I see a dream sequence like that. But moving aside from that,
that's so
I think
clippable.
like
Thank you for that.
I think a lot of that is problematic for me because it was like, yeah, like there was like the one moment I remember is when he pushes the dog off the bed after like telling him to. I didn't think he had come back from the bar though. I thought it was like his illness had clearly been progressing. He was coughing, like he was
Mm.
gone for the day. We don't know to do what, but I assumed like it was all related to him just going downhill on his illness because he also treats the dog shitty, his sister shittier as like he progresses into this illness as well. And so, if anything, I thought that was almost undermining it a little bit. Like, if you're trying to do this point about these dogs here for you, and again, like to me, again, I'm not trying to pretend like this idea that like this was all spawned from the movie, but like if the dog was more consequential as the movie progressed, and yet the owner was shitty and undeserving of the dog the whole time, then I feel like that's a much more effective way to get across the kind of points you're talking about. Like to be like, these dogs do everything, they sacrifice themselves for us. And like that's an over, in a horror movie, it's an over dramatization of what the reality is, but which is if you have a dog or whatever, you're their whole world. If you leave, they wait for you to come back. Like there were moments of that I thought they got across well, and I think they could have just leaned into that more. Again, there was like I just felt like every time they did something, I was just more disappointed, I guess, a lot of the time. And like, that was okay, but it could have been better. And I feel like that's basically where I kind of fell through the whole time. It wasn't that I was mad, like anything was particularly bad. It was like, that was okay, but it could have been better. And again, like, it's to say that, like, this was such an undertaking to film. Um, like the one scene I remember again in the like after credit thing or whatever where they say like, yeah, so this scene you just shot, that was a day's worth of filming, and it was like him jumping onto the couch or whatever it was. And so like I totally sympathetic to the difficulty around that, but it, like, to be clear, it wasn't those moments that bothered me. It was the cutaways that I thought they didn't do as good a job at. Like you're showing me the dog react, but where the movie lacked for me is when they cut to show what the dog's looking at. Those horror sequences are where the tension never built enough for me. And having seen things like Undertone, Skinamarink, where you don't have to do a lot visually to play off of my brain, but it just didn't do enough in those cutaways. Like, to me, it's like you've done so much good work. It's those fillers. And maybe like if someone like Shutter, doesn't have a ton of money or anything, but like maybe if this had gotten scooped up by like a Neon or something like that, and they're like, here, we're going to give you a bit more money and let's bump up those cutaway shots, that could have worked better. And then, yeah, like again, for me, narratively, it's just like, I just felt really kind of uninterested. Like, and again, this is could be just me, but like I was so like, this is the dog movie. I'm so invested in this dog thing. And for the real heart, ultimately for most of the movie to be behind this kind of human and their illness, and they're kind of dealing with this, and there's this weird stuff about their grandpa and another dog, and the ending that I felt like in a movie like this, like with dogs, with animals, it is so fucking easy to make people cry and like it make them emotional. And I felt like just on an emotional level, this movie fell really flat for me. Whether it was a triumphant feeling, which I feel like I would have preferred, but even as like a sad, heartbreaking moment, like it just didn't land for me either. And I feel like that was kind of a miss. So like I said, this is great for I think what it is. I definitely think there's a better movie to be made in this premise and with this setup. And yeah, like hopefully this is I think a big enough success for sure, I would assume. That, take another crack at it and do something like give them a bit more money to fill those insert shots a little better or something. But and yeah, I don't know. I just think their potential was not reached for me.
To hop in on what you're saying a little bit about like the emotional gut punch animal ending. Have you ever seen that episode of Futurama where there's Fry's dog and Fry gets frozen and he ends up in 1,000 years in the future, but it shows what happened to his dog Seymour, uh,
Mm,
and the dog is it's very beautiful. It's like he's like, oh, he's 14 years old. He lived a whole healthy life, long after you abandoned him and fell into the future, kind of thing. He's like, yeah, you're right. But then it shows that life, and it's him just waiting every season outside the pizza shop, waiting for Fry to come home. And it's a tearjerker. Like it's
mm-hmm.
absolutely, it's simple. It's like a very classic, heartfelt, like Matt Groening kind of ending of a small TV episode. I was going to ask you about that. They show like another dog. Again, I'm not a dog breed specialist here, but it was it was like that other like kind of like lab retriever dog.
Yeah.
There's a shot where it shows our main dog looking out the window, and it looks like a taxidermy dog standing out of focus behind him, and then it starts walking off into a different room, and our dog kind of follows him. I was under the impression from that, I'm like, oh, he has two dogs. But then they show the bandana, and then they show the corpse of that dog near the
Mm-hmm.
end. And it's like, oh, was that a ghost dog in that earlier shot? Like, did I miss
Yeah,
that
that
like
was the
beat?
grandpa's
The
dog,
grandpa's
and
dog.
yeah. So the grandfather's dog, and that was just like a ghost vision or whatever. Yeah, that
Yeah,
it
I do
leads
like
up
that
to
how they
that room.
did make stakes for this dog. Like I think like if this was the perspective of a child,
Mm-hmm.
or like another character, they would like you got that opinion that the dog doesn't think he's safe or that he can fight this thing off. The dog is like, oh, I will be choked out by this entity or whatever. Like I do think there was some effectiveness to it, but I see your point. And yeah, I definitely agree. Like I would love to see a bigger version of this with the same talent and the same dog. Even I think like they showed him being such a good actor. Like the dog was
Mm-hmm.
definitely not the issue, and a lot of it was just obviously a couple trying to figure out how do they get a low budget spooky entity on a Tuesday night when they're like, oh, let's film something for our movie after work, hon. Like I love that element of it, like behind the scenes, probably as much or more than the movie itself. Yeah, I think I would recommend this to almost everybody. uh Definitely blew my expectations away. Yeah, no negative theater experiences for me this week too. I think I had A1 experiences all week long for the first time since we started this podcast.
Well, that makes one of us, because for my Good Boys screening, it was Ty and I, and about 30 minutes late from the start time, so at least 15 minutes late for the movie, we had people come up and like, guys, if you're going to be late to a movie, Jesus Christ, come up quietly. Don't kick every seat that's in the row and then get into the worst part was, man, they sit in the squeakiest chair. Just going back, just back and forth. And you're the only one making that sound in the whole theater. Either fucking move because you had plenty of room, or don't move at all, right? Like, don't move at all. And we, like, for much of it, like, me and Ty looked back a couple times, and then that's when it slowed down. But, like, we're just sitting in dead silence, and then you just hear, like, and we're just like, holy Jesus. So maybe in part that hurt my immersion too, but for the love of God, guys, just use your heads. Use your heads.
You're telling me somebody showed up 30 minutes late to the 76-minute runtime movie? That is like ridiculous, you know? Like we talked about one battle after another, where somebody showed up, and then they missed the whole prologue of like who these characters were before things got messed up, and it's like, dude, you missed so much of what this movie's about and what these characters are about. And yeah, for the dog movie, to be fair, I feel like you can kind of pick it up 15 minutes in and be like, oh, there's scary stuff happening to a dog, and the owner is kind of not doing well.
Yeah.
At least they're not thematically like, oh, you know, I missed all this big lore, you know. But I'd say that's a strength for the movie. But yeah, I can't stand when people show up late. And if I'm being honest, there was a guy that showed up to my Roofman experience with AirPod Pro Max headphones on, walked all the way up to the back row where we were sitting, sat right beside us, took them off, was like playing with his phone to like de-pair them, put them in the box. And I was like fuming. I'm like, this guy's going to be my big theater experience story this week. But then he was a great audience member. He laughed at every joke. He was there for the right reasons. He smelled great. So I was like, you know what? You know, if anything, this is an ad saying like, hey, take your headphones off before you enter the movie 30 minutes late. That just seems like a no-brainer from a logic perspective. You probably want to hear the movie you're walking in late to. But yeah, I think your guy takes the cake. My guy was actually pretty sweet. I enjoyed sitting next to him once he put his AirPod Pros away. But yeah,
well,
on that
until
note,
next time, everybody. See you next week. Squeak.